last year. You don't know what it is? Is it a prescription thing then? Like Adam, he was on the real king puppy stuff, so I just kept him on that stuff. They make it, just not just for dogs.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is May 8th, 2017 at 5 p.m. I can verify meeting notice requirements are met, and I can verify a quorum. I need a motion from the board for approval of previous minutes for April 3rd, 2017. Second? All those in favor? Motion approves. Next item of business is the treasurer's report. Jackie Cahill is not in right now. So Jerry Solomon, one of the chairs of the Finance Committee, will give the financial report. We're going to ask that all questions for any of the topics at hand will be asked during the open forum at the very end.
Okay, with me. Good evening, I'm Jerry Solomon. Moved into the quarry in mid-September this past year. I live at 8966 Quarry Drive, infamously known as the Cedar House for some of you. So that's where my wife Sheila and I reside. On behalf of the Finance Committee and Jackie, I'm going to have the privilege of preparing and presenting the financial outlook. And the focus is going to be based on a question that was asked by the gentleman in the green in the back. Sorry, I forget your first name. Jay. What was it? Jay. At the end of last meeting, I don't know if you recall, he asked a question. And the question was as follows. He said, I'm just interested in two things. First, how are we doing year to date and compared to budget? And is the difference due to timing or real? And even more importantly, how is the outlook for the full year? So hopefully we're going to answer those questions to the best of our ability at this meeting. Okay, and we're going to expand on it. The questions we're going to try to answer is how is the financial performance in the first quarter of this year? How does it compare to the first quarter last year? What is the outlook for the full year? How does that compare to the full year in 2016? Where are we headed this year, and how does that compare to the budget? And then at the end, we'll try to answer the questions. Well, we did one major change, and that was at the Beach Club with the Q bar, and what effect is that having? And when we do this, bear in mind that a lot of the numbers from last year, the accounting conventions, the chart of accounts changed. So this is the best we could put together at this point in time, and it will only get better. Okay, could everyone see this? I know I was in the back at the last meeting and I couldn't see any of the numbers, so we tried to make it as big as we could for this meeting. And I would ask you, move your chairs forward if you'd like, if you want to see the numbers, because they are prepared for you, and it's a lot easier if you can see them, okay? What this is how we're doing in the first quarter. Sorry if I keep moving around, trying to figure this out too. So this is January through March, how we're doing this quarter. And basically, what we have here is in the top half is the revenues. And so $1,386,000 $1,400,000 came in the first 3 months, and our expenses were $1,461,000. We also had a charge of $39,000 that we've incurred so far this year. It's really for a prior year amount. As soon as the audit's signed off and everything, it'll likely be reclassed to last year. But right now we're including it in 2017 Q1 results. So if you look at it year-to-date through the first quarter, there's a loss of $115,000. Okay, you all with me? Yes, go ahead. Just trying to get in a position where I can see both without being totally on top of this. Okay, what we have here is the same numbers you just saw, what happened in the first quarter of 2017 versus what happened in the same period last year. Okay, and any differences are noted here. So revenue in total is up $320,000 in round numbers. Most of it is coming from food and beverage. Food is up over the first 3 months 150% from last year, and beverage is up 77%. So that's the major factor that's going up this year versus last year. On the expenses, as you would expect, if food revenue went up, food costs went up as well. And I'm going to cover food and beverage separately, so if you have any questions, hopefully the last slide will cover that. Okay, the other elements, cost of goods sold, food and beverage, we're spending more to support the higher revenue at the Q-Bar. Contracts and maintenance is favorable, but there it's a difference of accounting convention. Okay, last year, all of the expense for mulch was expensed in the first quarter. This year, they're taking us an equal amount each of the 12 months. So even though it says it's favorable, that's one of those things, it's timing, it's not real. Okay? Salaries and benefits are up versus last year, and I think it's been discussed a couple of times that I think it's 1.5 positions were added, as well as the additional labor we have to support the increased volume of activity at the beach club. The rest are fairly in line with last year. So when you look at the bottom line, last year through the first 3 months, the loss was $317,000. Okay, again, overstated somewhat because there was an extra roughly $180,000 for mulch that if we compared apples and apples. So if we took that off, we're doing slightly better this year than last year. Hopefully you're all with me. Great. Okay, so what is it going to be for the full year? Okay, what we're looking at for the full year, remembering that we have first quarter, we have a loss of $115,000. What we're looking to get to the bottom line right now, the best we could see out there is a loss of about $235,000, which includes the $40,000 from the prior year. So the loss would be around $195,000. Okay, and again, here's where we see the dollars coming in, and now I'm going to compare it to both last year and to the budget. I'm not comparing the budget for the first quarter because there's too many differences in the accounting, and the budget was done where it just divided everything by 12, and it makes no sense for a seasonal business to be comparing actuals for a seasonal business to something that was spread 1/12 each month. Okay, so first we'll compare what we think we're going to end up this year, a loss of about $235,000 to last year's loss of $403,000. Okay, so yes, it's a loss. The good news is, and we're aiming to do better than the $235,000. We have all eyes on that number. We have a very active finance committee. We're starting to delve deep into every account. So we obviously want to do better than that. But this is a responsible outlook at this point in time, having gone through 3 months of 12. So if we look at versus last year, revenue was up quite a bit. 2 reasons: your assessments were increased, and overall food and beverage, if I combine the two, is up 76%. So taking in more money. On the flip side, we're obviously spending more. We're spending more for food and beverage. We're spending more for labor to support those activities. and we're spending more because of the additional 1.5 positions. Okay, so that is why the expenses are up, but net, it's not up as much as the revenue. So if we took this 39,000 out this year, that really should have been last year, then you could see we'd just about be cutting the loss in half this year. Okay? If we compare it to the budget, and the budget's always put together to end up at zero, break even. We hope the assessments we charge, the plan is to spend exactly as much as we take in and end up at zero. That's not going to be the case as of this point in time. The differences versus the budget. If you look at all the revenue categories, they're virtually right on. The only difference is that food and beverage sales are higher. Well, I don't know if they're higher than anticipated. Well, it is, but we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But so far, it looks like it's going to be higher than what the budget anticipated. Okay, everything else in the revenue side is right on line. Cost of sales is higher because the business volume is higher. Contracts and repairs and maintenance, what we've seen in the first 3 months, it's running a little bit higher. Maybe that's a seasonal thing. We'll dive deeper into that to see if it's truly going to run over. Salaries and benefits, this is running over what we anticipated. A couple of things, the beach club labor, it's a startup of a new operation. How to staff it, how busy it's going to be during certain times of the day, days of the week. That's all on a learning curve that we hope to get a lot better to manage that portion of the expense as we go through the year. You look at some of those are the big differences. What we're spending on cost to support the food and beverage and the beach club labor. So that's how we end up $235,000 to the negative versus the budget for this year. Okay, a lot of numbers on this page because informally I hear a lot of questions, how we're doing, given that we have the Q-bar now. And so we tried to look at what's going on. It's the best we could see at this point in time. If you look at January to March, told you the food and beverage, what came in versus last January to March, you could see what a big increase in food from 99,000 to almost 250,000. Huge increase. A smaller increase in the beverage, but nevertheless an increase. Then if we look at this percentage is what did it cost us to support that revenue. So for the food revenue, we were spending 55% on food costs. The budget for that is 50%. Last year it was 45%. So we have work to do there. Lynn knows about that. Adam knows about that. All eyes are focused on that. Same thing with beverage. Last year, beverage percent, that's very low. I don't know how it's that low. I have to question that number a little bit. But this year it's running 38%. The budget is 33%. The good news is for both of those percents, they were higher in January than February, and February was higher than March. The trend line is going in the right direction. Okay? So we look at what's left over. The revenue for food and beverage less the cost is what's left over to pay for the labor. So far, the labor has been $289,000. So if you look at it, it's running about $99,000 negative so far in the first quarter. Okay? Again, with a lot of learning curve things in there that we have to understand better. And it might get better. We just learned, I think it was Friday, that we probably have an accounting error that we're probably going to have a pickup of $20,000 there. So again, it likely will be a little bit better than that number. Our full year forecast for food and beverage is this column. We're now in the tan, so this is the full year for this year, the full year for last year, and this is where we expect to be. Again, we're trying to anticipate what's going to happen when we get to the slow season versus last year and how much will it grow from last year. So we're learning as we go. We expect to end with about $169,000 in the hole here. Last year, best assessment was almost $200,000. So that's the beach club. We don't have the other expenses like some of the miscellaneous supplies, the disposables, etc. But apples to apples, this is where we believe it'll be. And the budget was about half that. It anticipated that amount of a loss. So that's our best assessment of where we are on the Beach Club as of today and where we think we're headed for the full year. Okay, I think that, excuse me? Okay, we're also honing in on the balance sheet. We have some things to look at now. The committee is working on, now that we see where we're headed from a P&L point of view, what are the implications for cash flow? We haven't completed that, we need to look at it. The board will be looking at getting a line of credit. We're also going to be looking at accounts receivable. In particular, we have a big one due from Pulte that we want to work on collecting as soon as possible. And also a reserve study, as you know, is being done. That'll be hopefully completed in June. And I mentioned the accounting adjustment. So that's where we are. We'll update the outlook after we get 6 months results, and it'll likely be presented in August at the HOA meeting. Okay, so that's what we have. I'll answer questions, I guess, after the meeting. Thank you.
The next item is committee minutes and charters.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Jerry, so much for filling in for Jackie. That was excellent and easily understood. Really appreciate the work by you and the Finance Committee. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the committee minutes and charters. As you all likely know, the QCA committees and the committee members were announced at the QCA board meeting on April 3rd, along with the process for noticing the meetings, the development of the charters, and the template for the meeting minutes. All standing committees met in the month of April. Some met twice. All committees, with the exception of 2 committees who met very late in the month, submitted their meeting minutes to Adam, who in turn emailed those minutes to all homeowners last Friday. We hope you take the time to read the minutes and to stay current on the work and the recommendations of the QCA committees. They are an important part of our association structure, and as I have communicated in the past, the QCA board values the time and effort and expertise of the members of the committee and their value to this process. We hope you appreciate their work as well and the process the board has developed to keep the membership apprised of the work occurring in the committees. As we enter the off-season, the work of the committees will continue, but meetings will likely be less frequent than in season. The schedule will vary by committee. I'm also pleased to inform you that 2 new ad hoc committees have been developed. The first one is named the Quarry Association and Quarry Golf Club Common Interest Committee. This ad hoc committee includes Adam Radler, our QCA General Manager, Bob Radens, the Quarry Golf Club General Manager, Mike Chaplow, who is the President of the Quarry Golf Board, myself, Jackie Cahill, our Treasurer for the QCA, and Kevin Ryan, who is a Quarry Golf Board of Director member. We held our first meeting on 4/18. The agenda items included identifying the purpose of the committee, which is to discuss how the QCA and the Quarry Golf Committee, or QGC, could explore opportunities to cooperate in areas of common interest and potential synergies. Discussion topics included the committee purpose, the board continuity, the short-term and long-term opportunities. The golf board has 3-year terms for their members, and on the quarry side it's 2-year terms. So there were some discussion about, you know, if you had a brand new board, then some of the work that you might be doing could, you know, what is the new board going to think of that? So we had that discussion. The synergies and opportunities included cross-utilization of labor, contract services, leverage the purchasing and vendor price agreements, the shared assets, the activities and events, We also talked about the lake bank challenges, a conservation area nature boardwalk that is being discussed in our QCA Preserve Committee. Street signs. You noticed probably recently that on the golf side they put up some stop signs on the cart path going from 15 to 16 that was interfering with people who were leaving the South Shores community and represented a safety issue, so that those new signs went up. We talked about the lakes, beach raking. Could we get the beach raked more frequently? And the golf club has the kind of equipment that perhaps could help us in that regard. And our property boundaries. If you go throughout the community, some is golf course, some is QCA, which is like easily identifiable, but some not so easily identifiable, and you have to go on the Collier County plats to determine how that was set up. So it was a good discussion, good meeting for a first initial meeting. It was determined that Adam and Bob will take the lead on exploring these areas and defining the short and long-term opportunities, and to make recommendations for areas of further study to the ad hoc committee. The second ad hoc committee is the QCA Golf Lakes Committee. This committee held its first meeting on April 27th, and the committee members include Adam, Bob Ravens from the golf course, myself, Chip Harrington from our board, Mike Chapello, the president of the golf board, Rodney Wiseman, who is the golf superintendent, Peter Reitz and Bill Flister from our QCA Lakes Committee, Laura Severance from our the Quarry member of one of the Quarry members of the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association, Barry Domofsky from the Quarry CDD, and Will's last name? Elliott from Collier Environmental Services, who is our lakes maintenance provider. The purpose of this committee is to examine issues concerning the lakes and ponds of the quarry in a comprehensive manner, working together instead of working in isolation. Our first meeting was primarily focused on littoral plantings, which are the plants that go on the lake banks, the littoral shelf of our lakes and ponds. The CDD has the responsibility for the lakes and ponds in the quarry. 3 of the ponds in the quarry are under the shared responsibility of the CDD in the golf course. Those are the ponds that are out on the golf course. That one pond that's out there in the preserve at 4, 5, and 6, holes 4, 5, and 6, as well as 2 of the ponds near holes 7, 8, and 9. All the other ponds and lakes fall under the responsibility of the CDD and the QCA. The 3 entities, golf, QCA, and the CDD, will work together to develop a long-term plan for the littoral plantings. We also have the involvement of the HBUA through Laura Severance. We determined that our first priority is to address the pond that is behind the homes on Coquina Circle near the green on hole number 11, as that particular pond has significant erosion issues which can be somewhat mitigated with the littoral plantings. Collier Environmental Services, or CES, is working on a plan in this regard. The golf club has also been researching different plantings and methods of planting. The opportune time for planting is just prior to the start of the rainy season, which is right around the corner. We hope that you agree that working together and combining resources as appropriate will lead to more efficiency and comprehensive approaches to maintenance and operation of the quarry. Everyone is committed to working together and remain open to new ideas and ways to work together to maximize efficiencies. Thank you.
The next item up is the Chapter 558 update.
Hi, I'm Chip Harrington. About a year ago, there was a report done on the riprap. And at that time, Pulte came along last June, July, and started to patch everything. Recently, we've noticed there's been some other problems. So I'm going to kind of go over a little bit about what the status is of it now, and a little bit of why it happened. This is a little history that helps you tell about the quarry and the developers. It's hard to understand the number of people that have been involved and developers that have been involved in the quarry. And you will notice that quarry doesn't even appear until 2004 on any of the drawings and design. So it was at that point that they decided, I guess, to split it off from the Heritage Bay. But you can see we have a number of people. Pulte bought it in 2009 for $1.3 billion in stock. And as you go down through it, I won't read everything here, but hopefully you can see it and it'll be visible on the video. A little bit about where we stand with the riprap. Most of the damage that we have is being done on the north and the east shores. What you see here is a 2-to-1 and a 1-to-1 configuration of the slope. That means for every foot out, you have this a foot up. So 1 foot up means 2 feet out. So it basically means you go from a 45 and a 1-to-1 to a little bit more of an increase in the angle at a 2-to-1. That's right. And the size of the stones are 1/2 inch to 24 inch of the rock. This was all done by the ABB company that did our engineering study last June by the former board. We have what's underneath is an underlayment. So the rock is put on the shore after the underlayment is put in and it's tied down. It's supposed to be trenched in. And what happened is a lot of the underlayment was exposed before we could determine what damage was done last year when the exposed areas were done. Pulte came through and put rock on top of it. Let's go to the next slide. Since last summer's repair, we basically have wind-driven waves that have caused the damage because we haven't had any storms. And what's happened is the water has gone down. The extra, in my opinion, which is subject to error, but I think we're pretty close on this. The extra weight they put on with the added riprap to the side has caused added weight. And as the weight has gone down, there's a buoyancy factor to rocks. Anything underwater weighs less than it does above water. So what's happened is I think we're getting slippage due to the water being down and the wind-driven waves. Waves, a little history here on waves. I know most of you know this, but basically, the greater the wind velocity, the greater the wave. There's a thing called fetch. Fetch is the amount of distance that it has when the wind blows to build. And because we have about 1.5 miles from the south shore to the north shore, we have quite a bit of distance that allows for the winds and waves to develop, particularly on the north and the northeast side of the lake. These are videos that were done last year that show kind of the wave action and what can happen on our shore. As you can see, there's some pretty good wave action here. This is what damaged us last year and what we've had wind-driven waves that have done similar to this year, even though the water's been down, so it's been hitting and opening up more of the areas. Here are some of the examples of some of the damage that you can see here. This was done over on Slate, I think. Slate. Anyway, this is where they were repairing. They were actually repairing their own property over there. And you can see right here, if you can, I know it's pretty far back, but you can see the underlayment has been exposed and folded over. As it slides down, it folds back over on itself. Graphite. Here again, some of the areas you can see where the rock is slipped down, exposing some, and these are only some of the small examples. We actually have a lot of ones where it's smaller, but you can tell it's going to slip. Same one. Anyway, just to give you some more examples. Now you can see more of the underlayment that is exposed. And again, and the holes are getting bigger. One more. Yeah, this is extremely bad right here. This is the rocks, the underlayment has slipped so bad that it's actually folded out about 8 to 10 inches. So in conclusion, the estimate for the riprap design should last 25 to 30 years, 40 years if you have maintenance. So what we're seeing now is about every 8 months now we're getting problems in the riprap. It should not have been happening. To me, that indicates bad design. This damage has been reported to the quarry CDD and their engineer. We have been informed that the engineer is doing a study right now as to what he will report back to the quarry CDD as to what the damage is and what has to be done. Whatever the report recommends will be our next step. The resulting report will more than likely have a financial impact. Hopefully it's against Pulte and not against us. So the result will be included in our 558 action that we're doing against Pulte and their subcontractors. And now, I'll let Cheryl talk a little bit about the 558.
Okay, Chip's presentation is a good lead into the update I'd like to provide to you regarding the Chapter 558 process. As we have explained in previous meetings and many written correspondence to homeowners, Chapter 558 of the Florida statutes, otherwise known as the Florida Construction Defect Statute, requires owners or associations to send a notice of claim to developers, contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, and/or design professionals, identifying any alleged construction and/or design defects in reasonable detail before any litigation or arbitration is pursued.